Good afternoon and welcome to CVM Live, the noon edition on CVM Television, online at cvmtv.com. And remember, you can download our CVM TV Smart app from the Google Play Store. I'm Whitney Levy. We begin with a CVM Live update. The St. Thomas man accused of killing 6 people in 2006, Michael McLean, was removed from court this morning after repeated requests by Justice Bertram Morrison for him to compose himself. His outburst come after the 2 doctors involved in his medical care at the Tower Street Adult Correctional Center indicated that the medication he has been prescribed will not inhibit his ability to stand trial. Mr. McLean insisted that he has not been seen by one of the medical personnel, Dr. Derek Jarrett. McLean also indicated that on the occasion that he was set to see Dr. Jarrett, he refused his services. Continuing his outbursts, he described Dr. Jarrett as wicked and said that politics was at play. He renewed his call for the intervention of the Independent Commission of Investigations, INDICOM, while making a new request to see someone from National Integrity Action, NIA, citing that he has physical evidence to prove his innocence. Mr. McLean subsequently agreed to compose himself and was taken back into the courtroom. The trial continues at the Home Circuit Court in downtown Kingston. Security Minister Robert Montague and his team toured sections of St. James now under an extended state of public emergency. As Nika Lewis tells us, the message among the team was that of hope for the Western Parish.
The common thread that ran throughout the length and breadth of the minister's tour Sunday was that of hope because of the partnership and support among the citizens and the security forces.
The utterances that you're hearing give us hope and let us know that we're on the right path. People saying this is something they want to be continued for another 3 months, saying that they can actually feel safe, saying that they are reassured that we are here in the market, in the streets with them. And so we want to encourage the security forces here to continue the good work. We know that there are things that we have to modify, and that's why we're here having discussions, as you can see now, with the family members of those who have been recently detained.
From police stations and detention centers to the communities where the problem often begins when criminality takes root in the tourist mecca, Minister Robert Montague was heavily guarded, the team from the ministry with him. They were not taking any chances despite assurances of relative calm in the parish.
We don't disrespect nobody, and the police don't disrespect. We talk to them nice and they talk to them nice. They say we should wait out here. So we just say wait, because we have business to take care of it.
Correct. I never get that chance to go to church.
I'm afraid not sleep last night.
You not sleep?
No, I'm from the church, because you know me don't have to come.
Let's go for this.
And while some talk was heard as to a name change from a state of emergency to an enhanced security measure, at least one thing was evident. Even the experts were pleased with the early successes of the operation.
Personally for me, each morning I get up and I look at the morning report, and I've seen St. James nil. It extends my hope. And this is what I want all of us here today to live with. How can we transform what is actually being achieved now into a long-lasting, I wouldn't say crime, but a long-lasting, secure St. James?
Nika Lewis, CVM Live.
The St. James Police have listed some additional persons as wanted for several offences committed in the St. James Division and are urging them to turn themselves into the police immediately. They are Christopher Boyd, otherwise called Plank, and Kieran Gao. These men are wanted for murder and shooting with intent, which occurred along Sunset Boulevard, Montego Bay, St. James on January 16, 2018. Tajay Dixon, 21-year-old, unemployed, of Grange Pen, Lilliput, St. James. Fiona Williams, bartender, of said address. These persons are wanted for shooting with intent, which occurred on Friday, February 2, 2018, about 7:00 p.m. on Grange Pen in Lilliput, St. James. Christopher Taylor, 42-year-old construction worker of Green Heights Meadows, St. James, who is wanted for indecent assault, and Christopher Vassell, 25-year-old farmer of Tangle River, St. James, wanted for sexual offences. Timoy Spence, otherwise called Shotter, of Red Square Tucker, St. James, and Leon Spence of said address. Both Timoy and Leon Spence are wanted for shooting with intent, which occurred on Wednesday, January 31, 2018, about 2 p.m. in Red Square in the parish. The Seismic Research Center has reported a minor earthquake this morning in sections of the island. Preliminary details are that the 3.9 magnitude earthquake was felt at about 8:51 a.m. with its epicenter near Magotty, St. Elizabeth. Among the hardest shaken was the western end of the island, namely St. James, Westmoreland and Hanover. In recent weeks, there has been a number of earthquake activity in the Caribbean, first with a major quake off the coast of Honduras, followed by a tsunami warning, and shortly after that a reported 9 earthquakes just outside Trinidad and Tobago. With the western parishes recording some of the highest crime figures for 2017 and a current state of emergency in St. James, many have begun to theorize this act of God as more than a warning. Some residents ran out of buildings, while others described the occurrence as sounding like a large truck passing by. Prime Minister Andrew Holness yesterday announced before party supporters at a meeting in Pembroke Hall, St. Andrew, the dates for the nomination and by-election dates for the Northwest St. Andrew seat. The contest will be between the JLP's Dr. Nigel Clark and the PNP's Keisha Hill.
Your new Member of Parliament, Nigel Clark, will be nominated on Monday the 12th of February 2018. And the day he will be elected to Parliament will be March the 5th, 2018.
The vacancy was occasioned when JLP stalwart Derek Smith stepped down after a shade under 3 decades in office. And meanwhile, Dr. Nigel Clark was presented at the meeting as the JLP's candidate for the seat.
We don't wrestle against flesh and blood. Our real enemy may not be the people on the other side. They are our opponents. And as opponents, when it come election time, we're going to beat them. Right? And beat them good. But you don't seem to like that. Me say you're going to beat them.
We're winning right now, I say we're winning right now. If we get a trophy, we won't be living right now.
But after you beat them, in the interest of the country, you might have to work with them. So we want to fight the good fight. We are for the poor and we want to fight against poverty. We want to fight the forces that would keep our people in ignorance. We want to fight corruption in all its forms. We want to fight for justice. We want to fight for opportunity. We want to fight for prosperity.
The meeting was also addressed by Councillor Dwayne Smith, who is the son of the former MP, Derek Smith, and who wanted to succeed his father. The younger Smith, who represents one of the parish council divisions in the constituency, gave his endorsement to Dr. Clark.
Everybody knows that I applied to succeed a Member of Parliament. And I have made it clear to the leadership of the party that I'm a little bit disappointed in how the process played out. But you know what? I was not asking to get the constituency. I was just asking for a fair chance and for justice. But regardless of that, no matter how hurt I am, I have watched my father toil in the Jamaica Labour Party for my entire life. He stuck with the party through the good times and the bad times. He has always put the Jamaica Labour Party first. He has always put the best interests of the party first. And I intend to do the same.
Tragedy swept over a rural St. Mary community on Sunday when an elderly woman attempting to cross the road was reportedly hit by a motorcycle, then hit by 2 other vehicles, the latter being a truck. The senior citizen who reportedly died on the spot was said to be an 88-year-old woman. There's another plea for far more Jamaicans to volunteer to become justices of the peace. The call came at a meeting of JPs in Kingston yesterday. We have more from Irvin Forbes.
Hard to avoid the subject of crime in any forum, and it was no different at the annual general meeting of the Lay Magistrates Association of Jamaica Kingston chapter on Saturday. Guest speaker, lawyer, JP and the former High Commissioner and the parliamentarian, Alun Asamba, lamented the senseless violence in the country and called for far more persons to move past just veranda talk and volunteer to offer guidance and counseling, especially to young people.
Can you imagine the enormous difference it would make if this small band of committed volunteers was joined by a wider group of similarly committed people, commanding respect and confidence of their local community and performing each duty with unquestionable integrity. There is an urgent need for a cadre of principled, upstanding, law-abiding citizens, men and women who will step forward as volunteers and offer their services to Jamaica in the role of justices of the peace.
As for the JPs, the Custos of Kingston repeated his call for them to have integrity. He recalled a disturbing discovery he made some time ago.
I had a JP did an undercover activity to see the rogue JPs around Kingston. And I told you might have remembered I've told you. He got 8 photographs of himself taken by a photographer next door and started from Constant Spring to find out how many names he could get on those photographs other than his own. When he came back to my office, he brought back 6 photographs signed by JP and one by a minister, claiming that this represents the true picture of whichever name he told them. So he had 6 photographs back at my office, and all of them were authenticated by somebody, and none of them bore his name.
James until May 2. CVM's Joel Crossgill reports.
The House of Representatives has passed a resolution that will see an extension of the state of emergency in St. James.
Be it resolved by this Honourable House as follows. 1. This resolution may be cited as the Emergency Powers Continuance Resolution 2018. 2. The state of public emergency declared by the Governor-General by proclamation on the 18th day of January 2018 shall remain in force for 3 months until the 2nd day of May 2018.
With the extension, the security forces will be allowed to continue their operations to root out criminality in the parish. Prime Minister Andrew Holness, meanwhile, said that the focus will largely be on those who facilitate those criminal practices.
The facilitators of lottery scamming, weapons importation, illegal importation of weapons, extortion, uncustomed goods, drugs, and murder. Those crimes will be specifically targeted, and we have mobilized all law enforcement agencies to deal with that.
Opposition leader Dr. Peter Phillips was terse in his acceptance of the resolution.
Mr. Speaker, as we had indicated before, we support the resolution.
House Speaker Pernell Charles reported that all 51 government and opposition members in attendance were in support of the extension.
Members, I wish to report that of the 62 members, 51 voted in favor and 11 members are absent. The motion is carried.
Joel Crossgill, CVM Live.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness toured sections of St. James, visiting detainees and meeting with crime fighters and stakeholders. Touring sections of the second city on Saturday was a welcomed opportunity for the Prime Minister, who earlier this month called for a state of emergency to tackle the crime wave in St. James.
I also wanted to see how the persons who have been detained on suspicion or have been charged, how they are treated, given the extraordinary powers that the security forces now have. I am satisfied that the security forces are not acting arbitrarily in the use of their extraordinary powers. I am very heartened to see that they have been very meticulous that they are following a process, and indeed, where the law may not be detailed or clear, that they have put in place their own processes to ensure that their actions are above board, can be reviewed, and that there is a system of accountability.
Admitting obvious challenges to resources, Mr. Holness says the conditions are up to par given the limitations, and none of the detainees he spoke with expressed maltreatment or physical abuse.
I met with a small but representative group of business people. There were concerns expressed, particularly about the international impact that a state of emergency may have. But they themselves were also very complimentary of both the JDF and the JCF, and they feel that whilst there will be some short-term fallout, that the recovery will be swift, particularly if the security forces continue in the way that they have started.
He says there is to be a review of the business hours and restricted movement based on concerns raised by the local business interests. Stressing the need for persons to share what they know, he said confidence is being restored among the people with the security on the ground, but urges more people to speak out.
The informer culture, that they will kill the informers. The truth is they are killing you even if you don't inform. The truth is that innocent people are dying just for keeping their mouths shut. Now is the time to use the greatest tool that you have, sharing the information with a security force that is of integrity, a security force that is efficient, a security force that respects you. Now is not the time to hedge with the criminals.
Now, a joint police-military operation in Granville, St. James resulted in the seizure of 2 high-powered assault rifles and 149 rounds of ammunition. The security forces were conducting search operations when they went to a premises in search of wanted men and illegal guns. A modified M16 rifle with 3 magazines, one of which was a double-barreled variant, was found hidden along a fence line adjacent to an open lot at the location. The magazines were subsequently found to contain 149 7.62 rifle rounds. About 2 hours later, an AK-47 and 1 magazine were found hidden in bushes nearby. That brings to 4 the number of high-powered assault rifles found since the start of the state of emergency on January 18. Prime Minister Andrew Holness, who was touring the area, lauded the security personnel for the successes.
I'm certain that there are more weapons to be recovered. The public the sense I'm getting from the public is that they are very appreciative of the way in which you have conducted yourselves in the operations. They see you as their protector. They see you as people they can confide in and trust now. And that's very important, because the greater that bond is built, is the more information you will get and the more of these you will discover. So I want to again just thank you for the work you have been doing. I know it's not an easy job and you don't necessarily have all the resources, but let's work together. Let's find more of these and let's make our community safe.
The president of the Cornwall Bar Association says while it agreed that the state of emergency means rights will be suppressed, we have to stop treating persons as if they are all criminals. She says they are taking all concerns seriously and the liaison between relatives and the detainees will continue in order to have the voices heard. It's the 3rd week of the state of emergency in St. James, and residents of that parish continue to voice their views and concerns. We have the very latest now from Curlin Brown.
With matters of human rights being openly discussed, more persons now know their rights and they're not taking lightly allegations concerning the state of emergency.
I think we need a better system, because the one that the Prime Minister implement is not the one that we're seeing right now, because I watch the news and I also record the speech that the Prime Minister make, and he said that whether you're a criminal or not, the police is supposed to treat you with dignity.
That's a far cry, he says, from what's happening, to the point he and others have coined a term they think best sums up the operation.
Since Operation Clean Sweep, well, that's what we call it, because them just a clean sweep, yeah? We don't see no justice, we don't see no dignity, no respect. Hey boy, come here. Then just take you off of the street, carry your gas station, lock you down.
He says the system is flawed by its own doing because the number of persons rounded up cannot be processed at the facilities built for a routine far less. One detainee shared what he alleges were his quick exchanges with the Prime Minister as he toured the Freeport station.
Yeah, when I was in era and journalists come and when they say, you know, say I look like a bad guy, I say, no, bossy. I mute them for live fun thing or work when they come take me up off of the street.
He was adamant he and others were denied food despite the efforts of family members to ensure that basic need.
I don't get nothing to eat. My woman pay for food, juice, everything from yesterday. I see that now, I know I don't get nothing, not even a plate of rice, nothing they don't give me. And they must say a justice or whatever. And now these people good.
What he alleges is deceptive, the report being passed to the Prime Minister.
Hey.